Hey guys, welcome back to the Lettuce Garden. Today we are going to be starting our new Force Power series, and in this first video we're just going to be talking about the general framework and creating a simple force healing script. And as always, if you want the copy of the code, you can head over to our group, find the game in the group games, click on the three dots in the top right corner, and then click edit, and then you can see all of our code there, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. Hey guys, welcome to the first video in our Force series. So today we're only going to be talking about the general framework that we need for our force powers, but without this video you won't be able to do the videos in the future. So you have to make sure that you either watch this video or you go into the description to the game that I link and get the code from there. Also, if you ever have trouble with the code in this video, you can also go to that description or that game in the description and grab the code from there. So we are going to be creating a very simple force power just to test our framework. It's going to be a simple force healing power where the user can heal themselves if they hold down a button for a certain length of time. So let's get started with that. So first, we are going to come over here to our starter player, and we are going to create a new script in starter player scripts. It's going to be a local script. So we click that plus button, come over to local script. And also, just before we get started, this video is meant for somewhat beginners. If this was more of an advanced tutorial, I'd be using module scripts, but because this is a beginner tutorial, we are going to stick with just simple local scripts and normal server-sided scripts. But yeah, if you are a more advanced person, this video will still be good for you because it'll show you the concepts that you need to implement into a modularized system. Alright, so let's get rid of this print hello world. We won't be needing that. And first of all, we need to detect when a user clicks a button on their keyboard, because we are going to be making this a keybind system rather than a tool. So if a player clicks, for example, T on their keyboard, it will activate a force power. And we're going to be using something called the context action service for that. So we have to import that. So local context action service equals game get service context action service. And what this will allow us to do, it will allow us to get if a player clicks a button on their keyboard, it will allow us to detect if someone clicks a button on an Xbox controller, and it can even let us put a small button on a screen of a phone, so we can detect all the different types of inputs in one simple line of code that I will show you guys shortly. So first of all, we have to listen for when a player clicks a button on their keyboard, and we do this by binding an action. So we'll do context action service, and then we'll bind this action. And we have to give this action a name. So we will just name this for now key pressed. And then we have to tell it which function we want to run. And we will tell it to run a function called button handler, but that function doesn't exist yet. So let's come up here and type in local function button handler, create two parentheses there, click enter. So now we have this function. So when a player clicks a button on their keyboard, it will run this local button handler function here. And then we have to tell the context action service which buttons we want it to listen to, basically. So the first one here is we're going to write true. And what this does is that it will create a button on the screen of a phone. And then after that, after we create that button on the screens of the phone, we can do, let's just say we want it to listen for when we click H. So we have to do enum.keycode.h, and that will make it so whenever we click the H button on our keyboard, it will activate this code. If we want to do an Xbox controller, we would do enum.keycode.buttonx, and every time you click the X button on your Xbox controller, it would run the code. And if you want to do a mouse button, let's just get rid of the Xbox here, we don't need that. Well, I don't. If you want to keep it in your code, you can. If you want to use a mouse button, you do enum.user_input_type.mouseButton1, and that will make it activate every time you click the left mouse button. For the right mouse button, you just change it to mouse button 2. For this video, we're just going to be keeping the mobile and the H button, but if you wanted to keep the other ones, you can go ahead and do so. So this button handler here, it takes two parameters in its function. So it's going to take the action name. It's going to be taking the input state. And I believe that's it. We will double check that in a second though. So what we're just going to do for now is we're just going to print the action name, and then we're going to print the input state. So let's go test this out and see what happens. So click test, play. If we check our output menu, if we click the H button, we should be getting something. So it says, yep, so if you look, I don't know if I can make this bigger. Oh, I can. Okay, sweet. It says key pressed, and then it says enum.userinputstate.begin. And then, so when you press H to start, it says begin. When you let go, it says end. So we are going to be making use of that. So you can hold down the H button to heal, and when you let go, it will stop healing. So let's get out of that. If you can't see this output menu, if you come up here to view, you can click the output button, and that will turn it on or off for you. We are going to keep it on. All right, so let's code this force healing. First, though, we have to create a force bar, so the player can't just heal themselves forever. So let's create the force bar. So let's create a new screen GUI. Now, if this was a more advanced tutorial, I would show you guys how to use ROACT, but it's a beginner tutorial, so we are just going to be using simple screen GUIs here. So let's name the GUI Force GUI. Let's insert a new frame, and let's position this frame maybe over here, make it a bit bigger. So this is the general spot I'd like the frame to be, but we have to clean up these values over here. So we want it to be in the direct middle of the screen horizontally. So let's do that. So position, change the X value here to 0.5. And then let's scroll up a bit to where it says anchor point. And for the anchor point, we are going to change it to 0.51. So now it is directly centered to the screen, and the second one here, the one on the right side, is going to determine where on the y-axis this it takes its positioning from. And when it's 1, it's going to take its positioning from the very bottom. For the x value, because it's 0.5, it's going to take its position from the very middle. So that's why we can do position as 0.5, and it puts it in the direct middle, because it's putting the middle to 0.5, which is 50% of the screen size. So that's why it's directly centered. And for the 1, we want the very bottom of it to be about there. And let's change the size of it too. So let's change the size to maybe 0.3. Oh, that's not 0.3. 0.3. And maybe just 0.1 tall. Maybe a bit shorter, 0.05. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So now let's insert another frame inside of that frame. And let's give this one some color. So I'm going to make mine blue by clicking that background color there. So I'm going to make mine blue. And then we're going to change the size to 1010. And that will completely cover the old bar. But now I'm just going to show you guys what will happen. As we use our force power, this bar will start to go down like this. So you can see how empty or full the bar is based on the size of it. And we can also change this background frame to be more of a black color. Maybe something like that. Yeah, that looks pretty good, I think. Let's get this bar back up to size 1. And we're going to name this bar easy. Okay. Also, we're going to name this local script force power script also, just to keep everything nice and organized. All right, so let's head back into our script and let's start coding the force power part. So you guys can decide how much force power you want your players to be able to have. I'm going to just make it force power equals to 100. So they'll have 100 force power points essentially. And every second it will take away a few points based on if they're holding down a button or not. So we are also going to have to create another variable for using force power. And we're going to initialize that to false. So when it's true, it's going to be removing force power. When it's false, it's not going to be able to do that. But we are going to have to look for that in another service called the run service. So let's import that too, and I'll explain what it does in a second. So local run service equals game get service run service. Oops, that's not it. Run service. So what this does is it allows us to update our force bar every single frame. So if your computer runs at 60 frames per second, it will update about 60 times per second. If it runs at 30, it will update about 60 per second. So let's come down here and actually run the code that will update our force power bar. So we have to do run service dot render stepped, and then we're going to connect. And when this function runs, we get a parameter called delta time. So that will tell us the amount of time that has passed since the last frame was rendered. And we're going to use that to our advantage here to make sure that our force power is going down the way we want it to go down. So we're going to have to create another variable up here actually called local current force power. And then we're just going to set that to the force power. So this force power is what our max force power is going to be, and this current one is what we're going to use to track what the current value is. All right. We're also going to have to import one last service here. Local players equals game get service players. I did not spell players right there. Okay, there. And this will allow us to get the local player. So local player equals players dot local player. So local player, two locals there, equals players dot local player. All right, so let's take a step back and see what we just did here. We imported these three services: the context action service, which will allow us to get detect when a player clicks a button on their keyboard. We have the run service, which will allow us to update our force power bar every single frame. And now we have to import the player service so we can get our local player, and from the local player we can get the player GUI. So let's add the player GUI in here. Local player dot player GUI, and now we can get the force GUI. So the force GUI equals player GUI dot force GUI, and this force GUI has to be whatever you named this UI in the starter GUI here. Awesome. So we have these three force variables: our max power, our current one, and if we're currently using the force power. This function here that we're going to use to actually run most of the code. And then we have this line here which detects all the button inputs, and run service here which we're going to use to update the frame. So let's do the updating of, actually no, let's code the healing script now. So we're actually going to rename this bind action here to, instead of key press, the action is going to be healing. Awesome. And now what we can do is we can do if action equals healing, then. So now we know that this function is dealing with the healing function, and we can act accordingly. So for now, let's just do if input state equals enum.userinputState.begin, then we will do print begin healing. And then we'll do else if input state equals enum.userinputState.end, then print end healing. Now, if you're a more advanced scripter, I'd be using module scripts to run the actual healing functions, but because this is a beginner tutorial, we're going to keep it all in this one main force power script. So right now what we're doing is we're making sure that when we click the H button, it's sending over the action named healing, which we access here. in the function parameters. So then in this function, we can check if the action is in fact healing, and then if the input state is beginning. So if we just pressed the H button for the first time, or if we started pressing the H button, and here in this other line here, we're determining if we lifted up the H button. And so if we test this, when we press down H, it should say begin healing, and when we lift up H, it should say end healing. So let's test this real quick. Hit H and check your output menu. Oh, we have an error. Okay. Oh, I didn't spell forced UI correctly. So I'm just going to fix that real quick. Forced UI. Now when we test, it should work properly. Awesome. So now when we click H, begin healing. When we let go, it says end healing. Great. So now let's code the force bar. So what we're going to do is this healing power is going to use force power. So we are going to do using force power equals to true when we start, and when we're done, we're going to set it to false. And we are going to make it so in here, every single frame, we're going to check if we are using a force power. So if we are using the force power, then we will do current force power equals, well, we can actually just add, we can add 1. Or sorry, we'll subtract 1. We'll subtract 1 times delta time. So what's happening here is we want it to decrease at a rate of 1 unit per second. So 1 force power unit per second. So if we're using the force power here, we will decrease at a rate of 1 per second. And that's why we have to include this delta time. Because this runs every single frame, we can't just, it doesn't wait 1 second. It waits like a 1/60th of a second, which is really, really, really short. So when we include this times delta time, it makes sure that it's adjusting it to be about 1 unit per second. And then we're going to come below this and update our forced UI. So forced UI dot frame dot bar dot size. We're going to change the size. So we have to do udim2 dot new. Let's just insert some zeros here, 4 zeros separated by commas, just for starting out. We're going to make sure this first y value is set to 1, and this second value here is set to the current force power divided by the total force power. So now, when we test this, it's not going to go back up, but it should go down when we hold down the H button. So if we hold down the H button, you'll see the force power bar is starting to go down. It's going down a bit too slow for my liking. So let's actually increase this value to maybe 10 units a second. So now, when we do this, when we hold down H, it should go down much, much quicker. Now, if we keep holding this down, we haven't added in the code to make it stop going down. So if we keep holding it, it's just going to go past the end. If you let go, it will stop. So let's make it so it can't go past the end anymore. So we will add in, this is very simple code here. We'll do math.clamp, and then we're going to put parenthesis here, and a closing one here, and then we'll make it 0 force power. So what's this doing? What this is doing, sorry, is sorry, this is force power should be equals current force power minus, yeah, okay. So your line of code should read current force power equals math.clamp, open bracket, or parenthesis, current force power minus 10 times delta time, comma 0, comma force power. And what this will do, it kind of adds a restriction on the range. So this is saying that the current force power, basically, it can't go below 0 and it can't go above the force power. So this will make it now so when we hold down H, it should stop at 0 and not keep going. So when we get there, it will stop. Excellent. So now we just have to make it so the force power goes back up. So let's just add in a simple else here. We're going to copy this line of code, the current force power line, and then we're just going to change this negative sign to a plus sign. And now, when we test this out, when we hold down H, it goes down. When we let go, our health bar goes back up. And it stays between that 0 and that max force power range. Awesome. So now, what we're going to do is actually code the actual healing part. So we're going to create a server script for this. So come up to server script service, insert a new script, and we're going to name this force server. And we're also going to insert a remote event into replicated storage, and we're going to name this force event. Awesome. So in our force server script here, we are going to get the replicated storage service, replicated storage equals game get service, replicated storage, and from that we're going to get the force event, which is replicated storage dot force event. Awesome. So now in our local script, this force power script, we're also going to have to get in that same code. Actually, we could just copy and paste that. So let's copy everything from the force server script and just plunk it in right there, the bottom of the players, but on top of the force power. So now the code should look something like this. So now we are going to, here, when we start our healing, we are going to do force event. We're going to fire the remote event, and we're going to tell it to heal, and we're going to tell it to begin. We're going to copy this. At the bottom here, we're going to tell it to heal, but we're going to tell it to end the healing. So now if we come up to our force server script, we can listen for when that event happens. So force event dot on server event. We're going to connect it to function. We're going to get the player from that. We're going to get the power name, and we're going to get the state. So for now, we're just going to print the power name state. So what we're doing here, okay, so let me just take a step back. Let's clean this code up a tiny bit so it's easier to read. Oops. All right, so when we click the H button, it's going to run this button handler function. We're going to check to see if the action is healing, which we defined right here, right down here. And then we're going to check to see if it's beginning. If it's beginning, we're going to tell our force bar to start going down, and we're going to tell the server to begin healing. If we lift up the H button, we're going to tell the force bar to stop going down and start to go back up, and we're going to tell the server to end healing. And then in the server, when the client tells the server to start or stop, it's going to just print what the client is giving it, so we can test to see if our code is working. So let's head over to the output menu, and when we click H, it just should say healing begin. When we let go, healing end, and our force power bar is reacting the way we expect it to react. Awesome. So now we're almost done this actually. We just have to code the actual healing part. So we are going to do if power name equals healing, then we're going to create a variable up here for local healing. We're going to set initialize it to false. Put a capital H on that to keep consistency with the other script. We're also going to get the run service in here. So run service. So although the run service on the server can't bind itself to the frame rate of your computer, because it's on the server, you still have this other function called run service dot heartbeat, and that will run about 30 times a second. So if we connect that function, get the delta time, and then run that. So here, actually no, we have to, instead of making that a Boolean, we have to make this a table actually. So healing should be a table. And so we're going to do here, if state equals begin, then we are going to insert, so table.insert, we're going to insert into the healing table our player. And here we're going to do else if state equals end. Then, actually, instead of doing table.insert, we will do, just make it easier, healing player equals true. And here we'll do healing player equals false. Clean this up a bit for you guys. So if the power name is named healing and the state is begin, we're going to put our player into the healing table. If it's ending, we're going to take them out. That's what that true and false is doing, putting it in and taking it out. And this heartbeat function, we will do for player value in pairs healing do. So what we're going to do is we're going to loop through. We're going to loop through this healing table every single frame. And if the healing value, so if value is set to true, then we will do player.character.humanoid.health, and we will add, let's say, we'll add 5 to their health, or yeah, let's do 5 per second. So we have to do 5 times the delta time. That's not how you spell delta or time. There you go. So now, if this all works, when we hold down the H button, we'll be able to heal our character at a rate of 5 per second, but we have to damage it first. So let's come up here. So in order to damage our player, come up here to the test window and click current client, and that will change our view to the server. And now if we come up to the workspace in the server, find our humanoid, and this will be whatever your character name is. So if your character name is Builderman, it will say Builderman here instead of Captain Lettuce. Captain Lettuce is my name, so that's why it says Captain Lettuce. Come up, click the humanoid, scroll all the way down, and change the health to something like 10. And you'll see that that damages our character. So now, and you can see our health up here in the top right. When we hold down H, our health is going back up at a rate of 5 per second. So it is working. It's kind of pathetic for a force heal though. So let's increase that to like 20 per second or something ridiculous like that. So yeah, let's make that 20 per second. Come back to the server here to damage our player, same way we did it last time. Set it to 10. Come back to the client, clicking that same button, hold down H, and our health goes way back up. Oh yeah, that's much more realistic, I think, for force power. Awesome. So the last thing we have to do in this tutorial is make it so when our force power runs out, it will stop healing. Because right now, let's just make it so this goes down at like a stupid crazy amount. Let's make it like it will decrease at a rate of 50, just so I can prove an example here. You don't have to copy any of this down right now. I'm just showing you guys what will happen. So if we set that to 10 or 5. So now if we hold down H, when our force power runs out, you can see in the top right that we're still being healed, and we don't want that to happen. So what we're going to do here is if current force power equals 0, then we're going to fire our force event again. We're going to fire the server, and we're going to tell it to stop all. And what that will do, well, we have to code that in, but we're going to tell it to stop doing all the force powers for this player. So we'll come up here. We'll just write this very top here. If the power name equals that stop all, then we're going to remove it from healing. So healing player equals false. We'll remove them from healing. And when we add in more powers, we'll have to add in more code there. If you're a more advanced scripter, you can use a bit more work with tables and module scripts to make that work. This is a beginner tutorial, so we're not going to be talking about that here. So now if we come test this, when we run out of our force power, so let's come down here, run out of our, oh, we have to come to the server actually, because if we change it on the client, it won't actually work. So if we set it to like 1 or something, super low, when we run out of our force power, we stop getting healed. If we get it back and we start again, we can heal ourselves for a tiny bit. It starts to come back. Now we have enough. It will continue healing. Excellent. So, one last thing I want to do actually is that if it gets down to 0, I want it so you can't use it again until the bar gets past a certain point, for example. So we'll create a new variable that says local fully depleted. Initialize that to false. And when we get to the stop all, we'll set fully depleted to true. And here, in this using force power, we will say if fully depleted is true, then only go or only do this if the current force power is above, say, 20. So we'll add in an and here, remove this end, then we'll just tab all this over and add another end here. Excellent. So if we're using our force power, then we have to check if fully depleted is true, and so we'll have to actually add in one more thing. If not fully depleted, and then we'll add parentheses here. Okay, so what this will do here is if the bar is not fully depleted, then it will run like we expect it to. Or if it is fully depleted, but our force power has gone above that 20 mark, then it will run. And we have to then set fully depleted to false here. And excellent. Then here, we're going to add in a quick else statement. And we're just going to copy this line of code that will add force power. Excellent. So now when we test this, when we go to the server to damage our player, or our character, I guess in this case, set it to 1. So if we use all of our force power, we can't start again until it gets above 20. So we can't just spam it. And you guys can change that value to something bigger if you want. I'm just using 20 for this video. So quick recap of this video. We imported all these services, have this event, our max force power set to 100. When we start healing, we're going to start using our force power. We're going to tell our server to begin. When we stop, we're going to tell it to stop. When we click H or a mouse button a button on your phone screen, it will start. At every single frame, we're going to check to see if we're using the force power and the bar isn't depleted. And if it is depleted, if the force power is above 20, we're going to start lowering the bar. And if the bar is completely lowered, it's going to stop. It's going to tell the server to stop healing us or stop any other force power that we might have. And if we're below 20, we're going to add 10 per second back to our bar to make it go back up to the top. And if we're not using the force power, the same thing, we're going to add 10 per second. And then we're going to update our frame size. If you guys have any questions, head on over to the Discord server. We'll be happy to help you there. Make sure if you guys have errors, you send us pictures of your output menu. And also send us your code so we can help you there with knowing what your code is. There was one last thing I thought I wanted to check. Oh yeah, sorry. This is the last thing. If you guys want to change how fast or how slow your force bar goes down or up, you just have to change these 50. So this is going down at a rate of 50 per second, and it goes up at a rate of 10 per second. 50 per second is a bit ridiculous, so let's make it 20 per second go down. And then when it's fully depleted, it's going to take, we have to wait until the force power gets back up to 20 before we can start it again. So let's close these out. We're going to save it by clicking Alt-P. Excellent. And that's it for this video. If you guys liked it, make sure you click the like button and subscribe to the channel. We release videos, or we're going to try to release videos every Wednesday and Sunday, or sorry, Wednesday and Friday, sorry. If you support the channel by heading over to the Discord server, you can find the support t-shirt. If you support the video, you will get access to these videos 1 week early. These Force videos will be dropping every Wednesday, and we have a business series that is dropping a new video every Friday, and our supporters will get those 1 week early. Alright, thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked it, make sure to click that thumbs up button, and I will see you guys in the next video.